So there are a few spots, though, the Mariners might, and I emphasize might, have actual depth on the Major League roster, theoretically speaking. And one of those spots is catcher. Carrying 3 catchers right now, and that's not the sole reason for me bringing up catcher here and making catcher kind of the main part of this conversation. It's because what we've seen early and what we saw right after Luis Torrens' return from the minors last June, what we've seen so far this season in his, 3 starts, and what we saw in September of 2020 after the trade with the Padres was a Luis Torrens that has looked every bit the part of a legitimate catcher. And if that continues, he's either a very valuable piece of the Mariners' immediate future or a very valuable piece for Jerry Dipoto at the trade deadline. But at the end of the day, if Torrens is indeed a viable number 2 catcher, Tom Murphy actually becomes the most likely trade chip here. And I think the most likely roster member to be moved during the season. Murphy's I think he just turned 31, but he doesn't have a lot of wear and tear on the legs because he hasn't caught a lot of games. Missed all of 2020 after the big 2019 and hurting his knee. But even a 220, 300, 400 slash at the plate makes him a really nice piece in a trade this summer. And I think we should be looking out for that. I think that's a situation that could develop. Now, of course, for that to become a real possibility, not only does Luis Torrens have to keep showing that he can handle some defensive duties, but Cal Raleigh has to show that he can produce some at the plate. He cannot be an enormous black hole. Because while Tom Murphy, and I know he's off to a hot start in 4 starts, but if Tom Murphy becomes expendable, it'll be because it just doesn't look like they're going to need him specifically. And that Seattle's other 2 catchers, Torrens and Raleigh, give them the opportunity to move Murphy and get something for him with a year plus of control left. Because even though Murphy might only be a 220, 300, 400 bat, which isn't bad at catcher, it's really not. Really, really not. I think it's more than reasonable to think that Murphy might be able to hit 220 with a 300 OBP and a 400 slugging, or somewhere within 5% of that. He might even be capable of a little more than that. But when you think of struggling positions, if you have 3 options to where you can play matchup, you have 2 guys that hit lefties really well in Murphy and Torrens. You have a guy in Torrens who shows promise against righties but really hasn't done it yet. And then you have a switch-hitting Cal Raleigh who hits righties better than lefties, but isn't entirely incapable as a right-handed batter either, and projects to be able to handle himself enough there to maintain his switch-hitting status. So if you see enough from Torrens and Raleigh, it really could be legit that Seattle goes out and tells a contender, hey, it looked like you guys could use Tom Murphy. We're willing to talk. Hey, it's Jason Churchill. To get the full episode, as well as every other episode of the podcast, past and future, subscribe for as little as $5 per month by going to bit.ly/getthepod. That's bit.ly/getthepod, all one word. A link you can also find on my Twitter profile. Hey, thanks for checking out Baseball Things.